with the Honda rider taking his first victory of the season. Smith eventually finished 5th ahead of Peterson and Petrus and Rian van Niekerk.
For that last lap at the bottom corner, I thought, we got him almost once the lap before and maybe tried again, so I ran it wide. He came in on the inside and he had to go wide because he ran it too hard, and I cut on the inside and passed him.
To the heavyweights, in the super truck category, the battle was between Claudio Piazzamuso and Craig Draper, while Paolo Piazzamuso was also still in with a chance this season.
Cassie has always been a very competitive driver. The truck is absolutely awesome, but we've got a 3 or 4 team driver lineup with Sarel van der Merwe, Craig, Claudio and myself, so I think we're going to give him a real hard time.
Henry Kirstein was leading Max Moore in the super special category, while Frank de Greef in the production vehicle category had been crowned champion already. A unique feature of the combined super truck, super special and production vehicle race is that they start the first race based on handicap, the slowest vehicles starting first. This makes for great racing action as the faster vehicles try to get through the field as soon as possible. Chasing the field in his Sobe Ford Courier was championship leader Claudio Piazzamuso, while Willy Prinsloo, who was driving Frank de Greef's VW, got it wrong as he tried to stay on the inside. Cassie Coetzee in the Minolta Toyota Hilux had qualified fastest and had started last because of the handicap, and he was slicing through the field. It was Max Moore in the Industrial Hardware WPP Wingfoot who held the former off-road champion at bay for a while. Sarel van der Merwe was in the Life Ford Courier, driving Paolo Piazzamuso's steed, behind Craig Draper and being chased by Claudio Piazzamuso and Cassie Coetzee. Colin Matthews went very wide to give Coetzee enough room. The race was starting to become clearer as the super trucks moved through the field. Out of view for the moment was Craig Draper, having started first of the super trucks, then van der Merwe, Piazzamuso and Coetzee. Jackie Hubert was leading the Super Specials in his Jojo Tanks Beetle 4x4, chased by Henry Kirstein in the Rockford Chenoweth, and van der Merwe was his spectacular self, trying not to lose out as he tried to get past the Super Specials in front of him. It was clear that Piazzamuso and Coetzee were catching up, setting up the possibility of a spectacular finish. Joubert had problems of his own as he tried to get past the F&D Racing Mazda of Frank de Greef, second at this stage in the production vehicle category. On the downhill, Joubert pulled past de Greef, who had his mirrors full of a fast-approaching Kirstein and van der Merwe. The 11 times SA Rally champion was acutely aware of Piazzamuso approaching, with only Kirstein separating the two super trucks. There was no way past de Greef for van der Merwe on the uphill towards the main grandstand, and Piazzamuso used the opportunity to close even more. Trouble was, he still had to get past both the cars in front of him before he could issue a real challenge. His brother Paolo had been forced to sit this one out due to the mechanical problems with the big Sobe Ford. With de Greef out of the way, van der Merwe could concentrate on catching Draper, but behind him, Cassie Coetzee emerged out of the dust, having closed the gap between himself and Piazzamuso. Now it was the championship leader who was held up by Kirstein, but he got bogged down on the exit of the corner. Coetzee saw his opportunity and pulled alongside Piazzamuso. This was excellent use of the slower traffic, Coetzee pulling out all the stops not only to get away from Piazzamuso, but also to catch his old foe, Sarel van der Merwe. This was a duel to be savoured. Minolta and Sobe drivers having been delayed and keeping each other extremely busy in a bid to outwit each other, van der Merwe was getting away and closing in on Draper. Willy Prinsloo was doing well in his first outing in de Greef's VW, and he had a charging Craig Draper in the Life Ford Courier behind him. Draper needed to get past as quickly as possible because he knew that the heavyweights were in their way. Behind Draper came Joubert and then van der Merwe. Coetzee had been leaving Piazzamuso in his dust, intent on chasing van der Merwe and knowing that there was still some slower traffic to deal with. Prinsloo wasn't making life easy for the Ford driver, second in the production vehicle class at the moment. But in the right-hander, before going downhill, Draper saw his opportunity. He had the power to get past on the downhill straight, but this had allowed Van der Merwe to get closer to the leader of the Super Trucks. Now it was going to be his problem to get past Joubert and Prinsloo. Knowing full well that Claudio Piazzamuso was still behind Van der Merwe and Coetzee, Draper was pulling out all the stops to maintain his lead, hoping that Van der Merwe would be held up long enough to give him some breathing space. This was the gap between the two Super Trucks as they completed another lap, and Van der Merwe had clearly decided it was time to muscle his way through. Having made short work of Joubert, Van der Merwe set about reeling in Prinsloo. Not surprisingly, it was even easier. Having dispensed with most of the slower cars, it was now a straight dice for the lead, as Van der Merwe had a clear road open between himself and Draper. This was what the people had come to see. Frank de Greef was leading the production vehicle category, with Colin Matthews just behind him, still ahead of the Super Specials, although Max Moore and Joubert were closing in fast. To make things more complicated, this battle was getting in amongst them. Draper had almost lost his lead in the bottom corner, but he recovered well as the two of them raced up the hill, glued to each other. Piazzamuso had retaken third, which Coetzee was desperate to get back. This was the kind of racing that Super Series is so eminently suited for. Spectacular stuff, and you have to be a brave man to get stuck into it. Van der Merwe was trying his level best to force Draper into a mistake, and going into the bottom corner, he got his way as Draper went in wide but lost traction on the soft outside of the corner. The Maestro duly took the lead in the Super Truck category, but to get to the front of the field, there were still Matthews and de Greef to contend with. Behind them, Piazzamuso was getting away from Coetzee. Matthews had also been doing well in his first outing in Super Series 98 and almost took out the leaders as he spun in front of the grandstand. Fortunately, no harm was done and he could rejoin the race, but this had allowed Claudio Piazzamuso to get past Draper and into second position. They were on the final lap, and Van der Merwe was desperate to get Frank de Greef between himself and the charging championship leader. De Greef duly gave the storming Van der Merwe some room, while Cassie Coetzee again overdid it in his bid to get past Draper. So, the checkered flag for Van der Merwe in the Life Ford Courier, who's taken to Super Truck racing like a duck to water, ahead of Piazzamuso, Draper and Coetzee in probably the best race of the season.
It's a very narrow track, so it's very tight to get by. And unfortunately, I made a contact with two getting through the field, which I'm upset there with some of the other guys. And I believe for the next year they want to run at the back instead of ahead of us, so we'll have to see what happens.
Matthews took the lead and won in the Super Special category, while Willie Prinsloo did very well to beat de Greef in the production vehicle category.